YouTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Bookmarch, and today's video is kind of a chatty one. I wanted to talk to you about what my process is to go through picking my next book to read. And I recorded some video from my laptop to kind of show you visually my thought process. That's hard to do, put my thoughts in a visual video, oh my gosh. So yeah, I kind of walked through my Goodreads, and I'm going to be inserting a couple of those clips in the video. But I wanted to talk to you about how I go about picking my next book. Do I have TBRs? Do I have lists that I work off of? No, I don't. I'm not that kind of a reader. I am very much a heavily moody reader. And I always have some sort of bookish obligation. It's not like I'm bucking against obligations. It's just I have books that are scheduled, whether it's a buddy read or a read along or a reading project. So I do keep that in mind, but I always have slots for the just because books, just because I felt like it, or just because that's the type of book I wanted to read next. So let me talk to you about that. What I typically do is I kind of walk around my shelves and I shop my shelf. I keep in mind, do I have a particular genre? Do I have a particular feeling? Am I feeling a certain way? Am I in the mood for something uplifting or funny? Am I in the mood for something heavy? Do I want to read a long book? Do I want to read something that transports me back in time? Do I want to read something that removes me from reality? So I could pick up a classic or a fantasy novel or nonfiction or a big, long tome of some sort. But that's kind of what I do. And what you'll see later on in one of my short clips is some stuff I do on Goodreads, where I kind of track what I finished, what the ratings were, what kind of books they are, that type of thing. So I'll insert that later. But what I wanted to show you first is me on my Goodreads, and I'm kind of going through my currently reading and my read and how many books I like to read at once, how I pick them. Again, what's on my calendar? What time of the year is it? So I'm thinking out loud as I'm going through my Goodreads, and I'm going to insert that video here, and you can take a quick look. Okay, so as I was saying in the beginning part of my video, how do I pick what I want to read next? It's pretty simple. What I look at first, or what I consider first, is what do I have currently going on? And right now I only have one book that I'm currently reading, and it is the Brontes' Wild Genius on the Moors, the story of a literary family. And this is on my Kindle. So I always consider that I have a Kindle book, a print paper book, and an audiobook going at the same time. So that's my comfortable spot, is to have 3 books in 3 different formats. So that's all I have going on right now. Well, what do I want to pick? So I want to pick maybe an audiobook, and I want to pick a paper book. So let's think about this for a second. It is April 23rd as I'm recording this. And so that means I have about a week left in April. And I know that my book project, Mental Health May, is coming up, and that will take the entire month of May. So I have about a week. What do I want to read in the last week of April? So I always consider, do I have any books scheduled that I need to read by a certain date? And that would happen if I have a buddy read, or if I have a book group book, or a reading project that will end at a certain time. So I do have 2 books that are scheduled. One of them is The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. And I have this scheduled for May for the Blind Eye Book Club. So what I want to do is what I typically do is I like to look for the edition that I'm actually going to read. And I have the paperback, and what I want to do is I want to find, that's the one that I'm going to read. Now, this I'm going to start probably pretty early in May, so I'm not going to start reading it yet. But I know that I have most of the month of May to read The Namesake, so I'm not going to pick that up quite yet. What else do I have on my schedule? My book group book, which is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. And I know that I have to read this book by May 12th, because that's our next scheduled meeting. And this is a really good choice to start reading now. So I am going to probably start reading it. Yeah, this is Sunday the 23rd. I may start reading it tomorrow, because I already have decided that there's another print book that I want to start, or that I've actually started because I read the introduction to it. So The Marriage Portrait I'm going to add to my read or my reading section in Goodreads sometime this coming week, probably midweek. So what have I already started? I have already started The Five. Now, here's something interesting. By Hallie Rubenhold, I think that's how you pronounce her name. When I put in The Five, it doesn't show up in the initial entries. So I need to show all results for The Five. But what does show up? None of these titles, there's only one title that has the word 5 in it, which is the first one. City of Lost Souls, why is that there? The Last Olympian, why is that there? Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, why is that there? And the 5th season, I get it, but it's 5th, it's not 5. So I'm going to show all results. Now, I could easily type in the author's name and just find it that way. But let's make my life harder. This is the book that I've read the introduction to. And so I'll go down and I'll look for the version that I'm reading. I'm reading the paperback with this blue cover. This one that Goodreads brings up first is the hardcover. So I'm going to go and I'm going to find the paperback, which is right here. Yep. So I'm going to pick that one, and I'm going to put this as currently reading. Done. So I basically picked my print book that I'm reading. I already have in my head that I have 2 scheduled books. I need to keep track of the dates and the times. Now, what else could I do? I've got a Kindle and I've got a print book. Do I want to read an audiobook? I think I do, because I listen to audiobooks in the car on my way to and from work. And I already tested an audiobook that I think I'm going to read. It's sticking, which means there's, for every book that I add to my currently reading on Goodreads, there's probably 3 others that I started to see if I'm going to like them, and I put them aside. They didn't, quote-unquote, stick. So you never know how many books I've tried to read for every one that I add to my currently reading. But I did start an audiobook that I think is going to work for Mental Health May, and I started it a little bit early, but that's okay. And the title is My Lovely Wife in the Psych Ward. So let's put that in, and it's this one. And I'm listening to this on audio. So let me find the audio version. Now, this could take a minute. Why do I look for the versions that I'm reading? So that if I record the percentage or the pages, that it'll look correct in Goodreads. So I'm going to click down here to currently reading. Done. So now I have 3 books in my currently reading section. The Brontes is going to take me a very long time, because the book, I think, is listed as 1,184 pages. Yikes. That'll take me a while. So what I like to do is I like to look at my Goodreads, and I like to say, I have 3 books currently reading. That's really good for me right now, because I know they're all in different formats. My Lovely Wife in the Psych Ward is going to apply to Mental Health May. The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women, Murdered by Jack the Ripper. I'm not sure if that's the full subtitle. This is the group read for People April, which is hosted by Elizabeth from Bookends and Books and Roz from Scallydandling About the Books. The Brontes is simply a book that I had on my Kindle that I wanted to read, and I thought even if I don't finish it in April, it still applies to People April because it's about the Brontes. So, that's what I'm leaving on my Goodreads. I'm going to take you back to my regular video footage, and I'm going to talk about the books that I have on my nightstand, the books that are kind of in queue, maybe some of the books I didn't get to in the month of April, and then I'll go from there, and I'll talk a little bit more about how I pick the books I'm supposed to read. Okay, so I walked you through that process on my Goodreads, and I'm going to quickly show you a couple of the books that I talked about, but I don't yet have on my Goodreads. So the Blind Eye Book Club is going to be reading The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri in May. So what I do is on my nightstand, my nightstand is my bookish staging area. And I typically have a pile of books there that are books to read or books that I'm going to pick from next based on scheduling. So if I have a schedule, if I have things that are coming up soon, I'll typically put those books there. I don't put books there that are my just because books because, like I said, I'm not going to pull them off my shelf until I really want to read them. But The Namesake is the Blind Eye Book Club selection for May, so it is in staging on my nightstand. The other book I talked about is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, and this is in staging because this is my Critical Chicks book group selection for May. We're meeting May 12th. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to pick this book up next after one of the books I'm currently reading, which I'll get to in a minute. But this one is coming up soon, and it will usually come up sooner than I think. So I want to start this, I think, before April is done. So as you saw in my Goodreads, I just added a book to my currently reading. I have 2 on there now. So actually, I think I have 3. I have one of each type of format of book that I read. My Kindle book is The Brontes, a biography of the Bronte family by Juliet Barker. And I've already started that one, but because it's over 1,100 pages, I think I'm only 2% into the book so far. Okay, that one I'm just going to pick away a little bit at a time. I typically read Kindle books at work because I will take breaks and I will go here and there. And that's usually when I read my ebooks. I also put on an audiobook I'm currently reading, which is My Lovely Wife in the Psych Ward by the author I forgot, but there'll be a picture here so you'll be able to see his name. And that is an early selection for Mental Health May. I had it on audio. I needed a new audiobook. Need is a subjective term, but I wanted to listen to an audiobook in the car, so I started listening to that one. And my print book is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper. And The Five is the group read for People April, hosted by Elizabeth at Bookhands and Books and Roz at Scally Dandling About the Books. I just started this. I read the introduction, and I must say the introduction itself is gripping. And I'm really looking forward to sitting down and reading more of this book. I'm filming this on Sunday, so I think I'll have a decent amount of time to get deeper into this one. So, what I want to show you next is April was a full month because there were a couple of readathons that I was really interested in. And one of them is People April, like I talked about. The other one was Trans Girl April, hosted by Kevvie at Say Kevvie and Willow at Books and Bow. And I've already read several books that follow into that theme as well as combined with People April, because I read a few biographies of trans women and really enjoyed those. So I was able to combine the 2 read-alongs. Imagine that. So I also had a light TBR that I kept in the staging area on my nightstand, but these are 4 books that I'm not sure if I'll get to any of these before April is over. But because I wanted to, they're going to be kind of on the top of the list when I go to pick a new book to read. Let me quickly show you. This one is Sergio Y by Alexander Vidal Porto. This is a novel, and it is a translated novel, translated from the Portuguese by Alex Ladd. And this is a novel about a retiring psychologist, therapist, who misses the signs that they have a transgender patient. And they kind of go back and question their methods and question the process, like, how did I miss that? And I wanted to get to this for Trans Girl April, but I don't think I will, and it's quite short, so maybe I can fit it in. I'm not sure, but I do really want to get to that one. The other one for Trans Girl April is Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl by Andrea Lawler, who is a non-binary author. And this one I also really wanted to get to, and again, another kind of shortish one. I could possibly fit it in, but this is, hello, somebody just woke up. Maybe I'll edit this out, maybe I won't. No, I don't think I will. But I might try to fit this one in before April. I'm getting really ambitious, but I do want to keep this at the top of my mental list. Now, the last two that I had in my nightstand staging area are for People April, and both of them I was super excited for, but I just didn't get to them. This one is Last Chance Texaco by Ricky Lee Jones, and I was so excited to get to this one, but I can't. This is Ricky Lee Jones from 70s and 80s rock, and I really was excited to read about her life on the road, her life as a musician. So, yeah, you know, all four of these books are at the top of the list. Let's just say that. Let's just put it out there. And then the last one I didn't get to is The Code Breaker, Jennifer Doudna, Gene Editing, and the Future of the Human Race by Walter Isaacson. This is at the tippy top of my list because I was really enthusiastic about reading this one for People April and just didn't get to it. I tried to read a bunch of stuff that I was excited about, and I was excited about so much that I couldn't read everything. Don't you hate it when that happens? I hate it when that happens. So that's kind of my thinking process, and I believe I already said this, or I will be saying it in the clip coming up. I'm losing track of the clips. Yeah, I don't remember, but I'm going to repeat myself. In June, after Mental Health May, which is going to be pretty heavy, the BookTube Prize judging is coming up. For me, I'm hoping to jump back into judging nonfiction, so I'm keeping that in mind. I'm keeping in mind other books that are on my calendar. And let me show you another quick clip of me going through my Goodreads and looking at my bookish patterns in the books that I recently finished, so I can show you what I typically do when I want to pick up a new one. Okay, so if I get ambitious, this is what I look at when I'm choosing my next book to read. Because, as I've said, I am a mood reader, pretty heavily moody in my reading habits. And typically, if I have no other bookish obligations as books that are scheduled or buddy reads or anything like that, I'll walk around my shelves and I'll just look. And I'll pull out what hits me. If something like, ooh, I really am in the mood for that. And that's literally what I say to myself. Ooh, I'm in the mood for that. But if I get ambitious, I will look at the books that I recently finished, and I'll look for kind of like patterns or themes or genres, and I'll feel like I need to pick something in a different genre or fiction versus nonfiction. So let me show you what my thought process is. If I go to my read list on Goodreads, I just finished Middlemarch. Yes. I just finished Cleopatra, which is a nonfiction biography. I just finished Dinez Smith's collection of poetry. I just finished 1,000 Ships, which is a novel, which I loved. I finished The Life of Christine Jorgensen for Trans Girl April, nonfiction. I just finished A Fine Balance, very long novel. I read Transactive, a biography of Gwendolyn Ann Smith for Trans Girl April. These are a few short stories that I read. I read Vivek Shreya's Even This Page is White. Now here's a couple of 5-star reads. The Three Theban Plays by Sophocles and Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. So, and I read The Glass Hotel. And now I go back and here's a 2-star read, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. So I'm looking at, what are my patterns here? I just finished a classic. I just finished nonfiction, poetry, a novel, some nonfiction, another novel. I didn't rate A Fine Balance yet. I will soon. But I'm also looking at how did I pick? How well did I pick? And some of these are 5-star reads, so I did pretty good. And I've got several of them. I've got 1,000 Ships, Don't Call Us Dead, Middlemarch, of course. And I look at the books and I'm thinking, what am I in the mood for next? I am in the mood for, most likely, literary fiction or another ancient classic. Because of A Thousand Ships and because of Sophocles, I just bought a couple of new classics. Let's see. I'm just really in the mood for not a Victorian classic like Middlemarch, but I'm in the mood for an ancient classic. So I might look at Euripides. I don't know. I might Aeschylus. I don't know. I might read a short play, but I think I'm moving in the direction of literary fiction. So now you know, now you've seen me in my Goodreads glory. You've seen how I use it, how I look at it, how I keep track of the books I'm reading. And it's not a very difficult process, but when I have a complete block of free time, I just go nuts with whatever I want to read. It's all for me. No scheduling, no deadlines, nothing. It's all for me. And most of those times, I don't even look at my Goodreads. I just walk my shelves. I just look at, okay, do I start with fiction or nonfiction? Which do I feel like reading? And that's where I go. I have all my nonfiction is behind me. Over here is one bookcase of fiction, but I primarily own fiction. And so if I feel like reading nonfiction, I go back here. This is a bookcase of nonfiction. So that's the first question I ask myself. Which do I feel like reading, fiction or nonfiction? And then if I say I feel like reading fiction, okay, do I feel like reading a classic or a mystery or a romance or literary or whatever? What do I feel like reading? And I catalog all my books, but I honestly know what I have where. So if I know if there's a genre I want to read, I go right for it. But if there isn't, I just stare at my shelves and decide, oh, you look good, I'll pull you out. So that's my process for what I pick, why I pick it, and how I start reading the next selection. Let me know in the comments below if you have anything to say, if you have any questions, anything that you do, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.